I can never go back into a dollar store. Even driving late at night or going into the woods makes me sick to my stomach and forces me to turn around. I used to not be like this. I was extroverted entirely. I went to parties, hung out with friends, I even had a pretty stable job. But ever since that night, that full moon, that terrible memory haunts me even to this day. My name's Dave. Let me tell you about the day I was almost murdered. It all started out when I went to work at my job at a dollar store near the interstate highway. I was working late that day because my boss called in sick, so I was kind of ready to go home. I sat behind the counter, watching the cameras in the corner to keep a close watch on things. I looked in the camera on the right, saw a man in a brown hoodie walk into the store. He looked about in his late 30s and early 40s, dirty, like he hadn't showered or washed his clothes in weeks. He smelled like it too. I was only a few feet away from him, but I had a keen sense of smell. He smelled like sweat, feces, and an ashtray. All had been crammed up together in an airtight container. He finally came over to me and put his grimy hands on the countertop.
Hey,
He said in a raspy voice.
I'd like a pack of cigarettes, please.
He spoke, a yellow grin spreading across his face. I was a bit uneasy, the way he looked at me. He didn't seem to be looking at me. He seemed to be looking just behind me, almost like he was looking through me completely. I got him his cigarettes and handed the carton to him. "That'll be $4.03, I said uneasily, my eyes locking with his. His grin had turned into a snarl as he peered at me. I could see now. His eyes were dark, like a deep brown, as he coldly glared, his face lifeless but crazed. He put his cash on the counter and began walking away. I felt slightly uneasy now, but just sat back down and continued watching the cameras. After hours of blankly staring at the cameras, seeming like nothing else would happen, I finally saw it was close to around 11 o'clock. My shift was officially over. I grabbed my keys and began to turn off the lights in the dollar store. I began walking around to turn off the lights before I heard something knock over. I looked back to see a box and a mop had fallen off one of the shelves. I calmly put the mop and the box back on the shelf and sighed, turning off the last light. I was uneasy again, but thought nothing of it, and continued working my way over to my car after locking the door. It was a 2003 Honda Accord, which wasn't the best of cars, but still efficient. I climbed into the front seat and sat as I began to drive home. However, starting off down the dirt road, something felt off. The car began to steam under the hood, and I kept feeling a bump each time I drove further. The gas was dropping at an intensely high rate, and I pulled over to the side of the road. I got out of my car and opened the hood, revealing a couple of my wires had been cut. I became angry and kicked my car, noticing I had also had a hole in my gas can that looked like it had been punctured with a screwdriver. I pulled out my phone and started to dial 911, only to realize I had no signal. I was very angry now, but sighed, knowing there was nothing I could do now but walk home. I began walking, kicking a few rocks on my way home. I walked faster, and suddenly, to my surprise, I saw a car on the road approaching. I gulped. My house was miles away, but I really just wanted to get there fast so I could call AAA. I stuck my thumb out, and the car had driven to my side. Suddenly, I realized who it was and saw it was my coworker, Alan. "Need a lift?" he asked me with a small smile. "Actually, yes I do, if that's okay with you, of course," I said politely. "Get in. I'll take you to where you need to go," he spoke. I got into the car with him and closed the door, buckling my seatbelt as he began to drive. "So, what happened back there that made you need a ride?" he asked, curiously. So I told him what happened. "My car had a few issues," I said quietly. "I have no idea, but someone had punctured my tires and my gas tank," I said. He heard this and questioningly looked at me. I see." He continued to look at the road. "Well, we all have our issues," he spoke as he continued to drive. "Speaking of issues, the Bears lost a few days ago," he said, gritting his teeth as he continued driving. If Mark had just kept the ball in his hand and quit being such a butterfingers, maybe we would have won, he said. Suddenly, we accelerated. I felt my heart sink into my stomach. Something was feeling off about him. Alan? I let out with a choked whimper. It was just a game, I say quietly. He slowly started to slow down. He began gripping the wheel very tightly, a slight grin on his face as we began to accelerate again. He began gripping the wheel very tightly, a slight grin on his face as we began to accelerate again. The speed we were going matched my heart rate almost perfectly. I started hyperventilating, for my stomach wasn't used to handling this kind of speed. Well, I hope you don't mind, but I'd actually like to take a detour. I have to drop a few things off at the house, he said, smiling. His face was now an almost contorted grin. I looked at him to see a hatchet in his left hand now. I began to panic as I muttered, I think I can walk on foot now, I said quietly. Alan grinned before saying the words, I can't let you leave, he said before brandishing the axe. He gripped my throat as I gasped and grabbed his hand as he brought the axe down, the tip touching my nose as Alan's eyes were crazed, bloodshot and strained. I growled and pushed forwards, blood rushing to my head. Alan was over 6 feet tall, and me being 5'8" didn't really help much. I yelped before using both my feet, kicking Alan in the face before he yelped loudly, crimson dripping down his nose. I took this chance to unlock the door of the car, gripping the small nub of the window and swung it open, jumping out of the car and into the creek nearby. Briars dug under my skin as I let out a scream of excruciating pain. Alan just drove off, angrily swerving around on the road. I gulped and got up after the car lights had gone off into the distance. I immediately pulled out my phone, and the water had done its damage. But I was lucky enough to see a church with its lights still on. I walked to the entrance and told the preacher and his wife about what had happened, and they called the police. I told the police what had happened. Later on the next day, the police had arrested Alan for attempted murder and assault. I went on recovering from that night, and still am. I had quit my job after the ordeal. I'm now moving in a couple of days out of state. The day before the move, I had gotten a package in the mail. The name from the sender was scribbled out in Sharpie. I looked at the package and walked inside, opening it. It was an old, scratched-up videotape. On it were the words, "You missed something," scribbled on the label. Confused, I took it and stuck the tape into my VCR player and began to play. I watched the night replay over, the brown-hooded guy walking into the store, but something else caught my eye. I looked to the side as he came in, pausing at the exact moment. There it was. There it was all along. My eyes widened in fear and my heart sank to my stomach, my face turning pale. It was Alan. Alan was also behind me, in the side window of the store, peeping in. That's what the man in brown was smiling at. I sat down, my heart racing as I felt I was going to have a panic attack. Those lunatics. Why on earth were they after me? And what the hell were they planning to do to me? If I had stayed with Alan in the car, only God knows what would have happened to me. I get up and grab my keys, walking over to the doorway table, before I suddenly hear the basement door creaking open.